This is episode number 570 of the InnerFight podcast. Welcome back to another edition of the show. Yes, it's me. I'm back. You don't have to listen to just Tom on his own like you did on this week's earlier show, 569? Yeah, 569, the second Run Strong podcast. Really hope you guys are enjoying that. Those guys are doing a lot of work on that, and it's going to be on our channel for their first series on that, which is, I think, for the next 2 months. As always, big shout out to our show sponsor, Smith Street Paleo. Hop over to smithstreetpaleo.com or send them a mail. hello@smithstreetpaleo.com. It is time for you to eat better. You'll feel great. Yes, I use their food all the time. Maybe a couple of Snickers on those last ultras, but otherwise, Holly makes all the food that I eat over there, and it works super well. So it works for running across deserts. It's going to work for what you guys need it for. Hop over to smithstreetpaleo.com. Give them all of your support. I'd really appreciate that. This week, this show, we are talking, and that's why Tom is actually here. For those of you watching, there he is. Good morning, Tom.
Good morning. Good morning.
Mike's nowhere near his mouth, but that's the way it goes sometimes. We are talking all about one of the biggest endurance events in the calendar of the year, which happened, we're recording this on Monday, happened on Saturday in Hawaii. It is the Mecca, the World Championships of Ironman triathlon, the long course distance. We're going to get all into that. But before we do, mate, there's two things I want to pick up on, because this in Kona we saw a record. However, we saw a record that you spoke about in the Run Strong podcast on Saturday, Kipchoge. Quick roundup of that for those that missed your podcast on Saturday or on Sunday.
1:59. It's been done.
Did you think he would do it?
I will put my hand up and say I watched his lead in about a month ago for a few weeks, but then I was just too busy following other things to see what he was like in sort of the weeks before.
Yeah.
So I honestly didn't know.
Yeah.
I just think that guy's attitude, like, it's just unreal. Have you seen his post interviews and stuff like that?
Yeah. It is quite strange, and especially the fact that obviously he's, which without any disrespect, like where he comes from in Africa, Kenyan, you know, and yeah, the way that he speaks, the way that he holds himself.
It's amazing.
I think, mate, I can't help but to say that Ineos have put a shit ton of money behind the PR side of this thing.
Yeah.
And to make sure he's speaking properly. It's obvious that all his Instagram posts are tailored for him. So yeah, great human being, right? And,
unbelievable.
And end of the day, he's had to run 250 a k for 2 hours, 42k. You probably mentioned it, but go and put the treadmill on like just over 21 k's an hour.
Yep. And
see how far. It's a really interesting test, folks. Just go and do it. Please make sure that there's nothing around you, just in case you get spat out the back. Yeah, but go and see what running at that speed, like 21.5 k's an hour, it feels like.
And if you've got something to say about the shoes, go and buy a pair of shoes then.
Yeah.
And then go and have a go as well.
Yeah.
And tell me how much difference they make.
Yeah, it's
very little.
Very little. Again, a massive commercial side, a massive Nike sort of marketing ploy there. They were the ones behind the initial Breaking 2.
Yep.
2 years later, Ineos took it on, and yeah, incredible. Absolutely incredible. Which may or may not, mate, have opened the floodgates for what happened yesterday in the female marathon we saw in Chicago.
Yeah.
Paula Radcliffe's 16-year record.
Big one.
Broken.
And
pretty well broken as well. It's a couple of minutes, right?
Yeah, I think it was. We're going to actually discuss this in the next Run Strong show.
Well, there we go. There we go. Well, I won't ruin that, but it's just an epic weekend on the endurance front, on the running front.
All sides.
And we saw, let's kick it off, mate. We saw a new world record in Kona.
One. Something in the air, in the atmosphere around the world this weekend for endurance athletes.
Must be. Mate, before we jump into that in too much detail, tell us a little bit about, we've spoken about Ironman before, but for those that don't know, what is it? What does it consist of? What are the distances? And just initial roundup of the World Championships.
So this is the Ironman World Championships. There are other long distance World Championships, but this is the one that everyone wants to win. Long course athletes wants to win, and it's the one recognised. If you win this, you are the world champion. You're the best in the world at long distance triathlon, which is 3.8 kilometre swim, a 180 kilometre bike ride, and a marathon.
Yeah, decent decent day's work for anyone.
Day's work. Yeah, and then this is in Kona in Hawaii on the big island over there. The reason for it being is that's where sort of Ironman distance racing was born back in the 70s, and this is just now, well, it'll never move off the island, I don't think. The 70.3 World Championships moves around the world, but this will always be on Ironman Hawaii.
I mean, because it's been there for so long, mate, it is really it's sort of, we'd say, the mecca of everyone wants to go to Hawaii.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to go to Kona. The course is famous, and we're going to dig into little different parts of it, because you've got volcanoes or volcanic sections, you've got incredibly hot sections, you've got hills, and it's almost in the last 30 years become the home of this sport.
Completely, and you don't realise it, I don't think, until you actually go. Have you ever been to Hawaii?
I've never been, mate. No.
It is an amazing place, and everyone talks about it being spiritual and just this like paradise land. And I went in 2016 supporting someone, and it is exactly what people say it is.
Yeah,
it is.
Are there? Do you think since Hawaii, the Ironman World Championships has been there, do you think there's been a massive increase in the number of tattoo parlors in Hawaii?
Yeah,
no?
Probably.
Oh, okay.
There's certainly an increase in like coffee shops, breakfast places, stuff like that. But there's places like where the Kona, where it actually is itself on race week, is just nuts. It's like the world's biggest expo for triathlon. I think it's got there's actually 2 expos there.
Wow.
And it takes you a good hour to get through them all, and then get to the next one and get through that one.
Wow.
It's a day's worth, and everyone there is in unreal shape.
And probably costs you a fortune as you pass through those expos as well.
Fortune, yeah.
Everyone's buying everything.
It's such a big race. All the sponsors are there. All the athletes are there, and they have commitments to their sponsors. So you get to see them. You can talk to them. When I was there, the key for me was actually, you know me, mate, don't like being around that sort of thing too much. So I spent a bit of time to actually get away from that and go and see the rest of the island. Yeah. And that is where it really is magic part of Kona. It's just, you can go from sea level and climb all the way up to the top, where there's sometimes, I think they get a bit of snow up there sometimes, but I can't remember the elevation, but it's huge. It is a popping on the way up, and you can do it like within, I think you can drive it within under like 2 hours or something like that. So the climate you get on the island just creates this in areas like luscious green, blue seas, turtles, dolphins, sharks, you can see everything, and then you can go up and it just gets this barren, dry, like lava field land, and you can look down into the volcano and see the lava moving and churning, and you're so close to it, and then you can look up, there's no light pollution, and you just get this night sky that is just stars, and so it has everything there that you can want.
It is, aside from being an invasion of triathlon geeks during that week or during those 2 weeks, it is actually genuinely quite an incredible place.
Really special place. And the locals believe, they have so many stories of spirits, and there's traditions there, and they, the locals never want to be anything else other than what they are. Right. And I think that's super, super powerful for a place, because they don't try and change for anyone or anything. Yeah. So when you go there, you pick up how they, like, their lifestyle, their spirit, their way of life, and it's really nice. It's just a refreshing place to be. That's awesome,
mate. Talking about the vibe and the atmosphere, you've obviously got the big expos. One thing that I've always watched parts of during what do they call it, breakfast with Bob, is like that's and one thing I love about that is he manages to get on athletes that are actually going to race. So whilst these pros are there, it's the biggest race of the year for them. Yes, we know it sponsors commitment, but there's kind of on shows like that and doing appearances like that, and just being super normal people, and that's what's quite unique about the sport, right?
Definitely. Yeah, you get a real insight into their lives and their training, and even more so this year, I think. Well, it's been going on for the past few years, but like YouTube, they've all got their own YouTube channels now. Yeah. And it's kind of almost like who's going to roll the dice and tell people their numbers, and who's going to show what they've actually been doing in their training. Yeah. And I think it used to be such a closed bubble. Yeah. And unless you had gone to the island or someone else had gone and shown you pictures from it, or maybe you'd seen like they used to put the races out on like VHS tapes and things like that.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
you could
yeah.
watch back when it was like the Ford sponsored Ironman.
Yes.
You didn't really know what it was like there, and you just
Yeah.
heard people talking so great about this place and what other people were doing. But now you get more of an insight into what they are doing, and obviously the Breakfast with Bob is a very interesting show to watch.
Super interesting.
It's pre-race, and you're like, who's going to show their cards, who's going to show some confidence, who's just happy to be there. You get a real idea. If you take away what they're saying and look at more like their body language and read between the lines a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit of trash talk going on.
Yeah.
I remember it's funny because last year, obviously, talking about those YouTube channels, Lionel Sanders was really active through all his social media, through YouTube, and he threw up a load of content actually riding the course. Was it the day before last year, or like 3 or 4 days before, at some ridiculous speeds? And maybe, I guess that feeds into a lot of the mind games as well, right?
Massively. He was he wasn't on my list of favourites this year. Yeah. But he was on most people's, and I just saw, last year he had a really tough race, and everyone could see it from his YouTube channel. Basically, he was completely burnt himself out, and and then he went through this period last year. He put up a video post-race of what happened, and he's going to change, and he's going to get a coach, and he's changing everything about the bike, he's changing everything about the run. And you thought, oh, maybe, he's learning, and he came across as this really humbled person. And then I think the next 3 months up to December, he was quite quiet, and then a video would get launched, and he's like, I'm getting a bike fit now, and I'm changing my running style, and I'm taking in more recovery days, I'm not doing this, but I'm doing this instead. And you're like, all right, sweet. And then the season rolls around, and he gets injured. And he actually fractured his sacrum, a really popular injury now between the top pros. Yeah. A sacral fracture, stress fracture, which is, it's really, really tough one. It's basically fracturing the bottom of your spine where it goes into where your hips sits. Right. So it's a horrible, horrible fracture to get. And that was it. He sort of had to just sit out, and he could do nothing, I think, for the first 2 weeks, maybe. Wow. Then he started the comeback process, which was very interesting to watch.
Well, mate, talking about big comebacks, obviously last year's big news was that Jan Frodeno wouldn't race. A previous champion, and that was probably, I don't know, the limited reading that I maybe did going into this, that was probably the most anticipated return to the sport, because we've seen it before, right? We saw obviously Tim Don with the halo, which anyone who's looking for some inspiration from injuries should definitely go and watch that. In short, Tim Don was riding the course a few days before Kona 3 or 4 years ago, got hit by a truck, broke his neck, and wore a halo for 6 months, and then he came back the following year, basically.
No, he got on the start line that year.
Yeah. So he came back within a year, which is amazing. So it is a sport and it is a dangerous sport, mate. People are out riding bikes. Yeah. Injuries happen. Things happen. Overuse injuries happen, especially these guys, like they're training for 3 sports, swim, bike, run, and the distances are super long. Like, you've got to be fast. I mean, this was one of the biggest things coming into this year's race. We're speaking before about Lionel Sanders, we're talking about these guys, and you've actually got more stats on the number of guys that had quite bad injuries we were speaking about before the show. We might want to share that now, mate, and see give people an insight into the shape that some of these guys are in. Yeah,
that actually was the biggest takeaway for me from this year. The race here goes through the night here, so sort of we wake up and find the results, and woke up and saw the podium was, just to spoil it for everyone, but Frodeno won. New world record, 7 hours, 51 minutes, 13 seconds. He went a minute and a handful of change faster than Patrick Lange's course record that he set last year. So it was just a complete domination. And then Tim O'Donnell, who is a real experienced guy. He's been on the scene, been racing at Kona since 2011. We came second, and which is his best ever result. And then Sebastian Kienle, who was 2014 champion, came in third. And they've all had an injury in the past 18 months that's kept them out from running, more importantly. Tim O'Donnell actually fractured or refractured his 5th metatarsal only 6 weeks ago. Wow. So he was did all his run prep on an Alta G, which is a zero gravity treadmill,
Right.
which basically keeps your weight off your foot but still allowing you to run, kind of like aqua jogging.
Right.
And he even joked around before packing to go to Kona, saying there's no point in packing my run shoes.
Wow.
So he said, I didn't have the run prep I wanted, but he got into the marathon and just felt great.
Yeah.
And ran himself, biked super hard, and then managed to run himself to a point where he could continue on in second place.
Yeah.
Sebastian Kienle has had Achilles issues for the past 3 years, but particularly bad at the start of this year, he said, and again had a huge chunk of time out of his run prep. And then obviously Frodeno spent a lot of last year coming back from his sacrum fracture, which then didn't have the most ideal, obviously, off-season run prep, things like that, but he's just had a hell of a year anyway. But what it shows is these guys actually took forced time off.
Yeah.
And how much of that does that sort of, the first thing it said to me was, wow, does that show actually are they all doing the right amount of volume? Are they all going into Kona at the end of the year absolutely cooked?
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure their coaches and them can look at their numbers and say, no, like, these guys are, they've all got it down to a fine art, whatever. But I must say, we can't ignore the fact the top 3 best in the world all had at least 2 months off their normal run prep this year.
Yeah, and I think that's something that, mate, is a very good point. That what I was saying earlier, this sport, we get overuse injuries, like they're having to, and these guys actually, they're still racing quite a bit. It's their bread and butter. They need to go to races. They officially, unofficially get fees for turning up to races. So they're obviously, and they want to be at races because they want to stay on form and in the game. But at the end of the day, no matter if you're a professional athlete or you're couch to 5K kind of person, your body's still going to tolerate stress in a certain way and break down. And, it shows these guys haven't have time off. And I don't think you could say that anyone who's coming in and setting a world record over this distance is not prepared properly and not cooked. I think that's where good coaching comes into it, that they've had that time off and they've come back. And it is incredible, mate, those top 3 guys.
I think they also shared a belief. They all believed that they could win it. Yeah. And I don't want people to get confused with me saying volume needs to get cut. I mean, these guys have been racing all their life. They're all lifetime athletes. So they have an unreal base of fitness that maybe we saw with like Brownlee, who's been racing more, has been racing short distance all his life, but hasn't done. Well, I think he's only run 1 marathon before this, in Ironman Cork, which is what got him qualified here. That you need an unbelievable well of fitness going into it, but maybe that affords you to take a little bit of break and just put in the quality work to come back with.
Yeah, and it goes the same for, and that's why I want to sort of take that learning, mate. It goes the same for any athlete. They need to take that time out to get better. If things are not going too well, they need to take the time out. They need to rest a little bit, and then that's how they're going to get better, and the body's going to recover.
And you need a failure. You need to fail in order to get better from it. And it's like we talked about earlier with Kipchoge on the 159. Like, this wasn't his first crack at it. Yeah. He failed 2 years ago. Yeah, exactly. In Venice with the Nike Challenge. So, maybe there's a lot to be learned from this year's race. And I just smiled to myself when I saw the podium, because I was like, that is a real powerful podium right there. Mate, the whole top guys. There's no one in there by luck, which I think is fantastic. Yeah,
which is awesome. Let's jump back though, mate. It is, like you said, you've got 3.8k swim. Now, different things can happen in a swim of a race of this type. You've got different temperatures of water, choppiness, the field. But essentially, the swim really, when we talk about variables such as terrain, all of this stuff, the swim is probably the most straightforward part of it. Is it or isn't it?
There's a saying, you can't win the race in the swim, but you can certainly lose it.
Right.
There's always going to be, within any triathlon, you get your fast swimmers, you get your fast bikers, and you get your fast runners. Yeah. Kona typically has, over the years, really found out who the top swimmers are, because it's not the easiest conditions to swim in. Right. Who the top bikers are, because it's a real tough bike course. Yeah. But it's technically it's known as a runner's course, so the runners will always persevere. Right. However, you're either going to be, if you're a good runner, you're going to be running yourself back through the field into a top 5 place because you might
Yeah.
have had a bad swim and a poor bike.
Yes.
Or you've worked so hard on your swim and your bike that you're getting off the bike in a position to just nail the run that you know you can do.
Yeah.
We see it every year. People want to be first out of the water. They want to try and set Kona records in the swim. Last year, I think it was a German amateur guy set the record, and he came in. It was like, I can't remember what the time was, but basically got out, went through the timing beep of the swim, a transition. So you entered transition 1, and just stopped and started celebrating.
Had a sleep. Yeah.
He had a shower.
So
he got changed. He was like, I got to go do the bike now. And off he went. He had no chance of winning his age group. He just wanted to break that Kona swim record, and he did it.
And he did it.
This year, I'm not sure if it was broken, but as expected, Josh Amberger, who's an Aussie,
great tash,
unbelievable tash and mullet.
Mullet is just I think I might go there next.
Could be the shout, mate. Could be the shout.
Take it back.
He stated at the start, I want to break the swim record.
Yeah.
He swam a 47.28. And he had people on his toes. Well, Alistair Brownlee was on his toes the whole time. He swam a 47.33.
Wow.
So, like, right out behind him in the water.
Yeah.
But there was a pack of about 7 of them. So, although Josh Amberger's done what he said he was going to do and lead the swim, he's also taken 6 other people with him.
Which, again, like you say, you might not win the Ironman, or you won't win the Ironman in the swim. Yeah. But you could definitely lose it.
You could lose it. So if he'd pulled a gap and say only Brownlee had got on his toes, and the others hadn't, then he's pulled Brownlee, and you've now got a 2-minute gap, or a minute gap, which wouldn't have won Brownlee the race, but it might have lost the others.
Someone else.
So that's where the theory of that comes in.
What then really happens, though, mate, is when Kona and all those sort of landscape factors that you started to speak about, when they get on the bike, this is where that really starts to kick in. And I think that's what makes this course so incredible. You've got 180k, and it's through varying landscapes, isn't it? Talk us through what these guys, and for those guys that listen that are only flipping around Al Qudra, which is great, talk us through what they can expect for the 180k on the bike, because this is where you're on it for a fair amount of time, especially if you're just an age group. I mean, the pros are on the bike for 4 odd hours anyway. Yeah. But this is where the race sort of starts to get interesting, right?
Yeah, you're not actually allowed to take a disc wheel to Kona.
Right.
Can't race with a disc there.
Because it's too windy.
The crosswinds are too windy. And a couple of the pros were out there training in the week before, and they were using like 80mm front wheels and just saying this is too dangerous.
Wow.
So the crosswinds are unreal.
Yeah.
You ride out of transition, and then you go through the sort of local street areas before you head out onto what's the most famous road there called the Queen K, which is a big highway. So you always feel good leaving T1.
Yeah.
The big crowd, I mean, you're at the world's biggest crowd you're going to get at an Ironman.
Yeah.
But then you're up on this road, and when you're up on this road, that's where it's, the race really starts to see. And a lot of people say the pros are drafting and impacts and stuff, and to a point they are, but they're sticking to the rules. They're not. They're getting a benefit of sitting behind each other, but they're not doing it to a point where they can get a penalty.
Right.
The key is to get out of transition and get in with a pack. So that you can start to get pulled along. You can also use that because if you're going along and you're seeing one of these crosswinds hit, you can see the rider in front of you take the hit first before you go through the gust.
Right.
So there's a bit of tactics to it.
Yeah.
But what you get essentially is you go up along the Queen K, and then actually what people don't realize is there's nearly 2,000 meters of climbing in this bike. It's rolling, which you don't realize is what you get.
But that, mate, even that, you've got 2,000 meters of climbing over 180k, you're never really going flat. It's just rolling the whole time. Exactly. So you can enjoy it a little bit on the downhill, choose to put a little bit more in, but then you're going to have to work a little bit to climb up, and it could only be 20 meters elevation over a few K, but still it's a couple of percent, and that starts to burn the legs, right?
Yeah, especially if you've got a headwind into your face or a crosswind, and this wind is coming off the lava, so it's hot.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things, right?
It definitely is, yeah. So you're getting this constant, which it's not too dissimilar to Al Qudra if people are listening and have cycled up there, like the hot desert winds coming in, but then add in rolling hills, add in the fact that you're in a race with, 50 other the best riders in the world.
Yeah,
you've got to remember to eat, you've got to remember to drink, and then you get to the turnaround point at the top, I think it's called Harvey, turnaround point, and then the race really begins because the leaders can start seeing who's catching
them,
and the Uber bikers are coming up and seeing how far they of the leaders. They can see what sort of shape they're in. And this year it was actually where Brownlee got a puncture.
Right.
So it was, I think, 3 of them in the lead.
Just to give this a little bit of context, mate, because I think it's cool talking about the course and then going back to the races. Alistair Brownlee, obviously British triathlete from down the road from where I'm from. Him and his brother have, over the last 10 years, pretty much won everything
there is to win, yeah.
Aside, and they've never gone into the long course. Alistair Brownlee qualified on his first attempt in a race that was actually, it was shorter, right? It
was only a bike and run.
The bike and run, so the swim was actually cut. He deserves to be there to a certain extent because his record is incredible, but he hasn't qualified traditionally, which I'm pretty sure that I don't read a lot about triathlons because I'm full up reading about all the other stuff. However, I can imagine there was certain people within the community that are like, hang on a minute. And this guy, he's up with the front pack. He's second or third out of the water. He's with the front pack on the bike, but then at the turnaround point, he punctures.
Yeah.
So how do you think that went with these top pros? Like you said, mate, Jan Frodeno and all these guys have been there before. The guy that finished third has won the race. There must have been some kind of rivalry or something. What was your thoughts on what was happening there? And then when he punches, do you think Frodeno maybe just chucked a bottle back? A glass one.
So they all said how happy they are for Brownlee to be there, the pros.
Nice PR, yeah.
Yeah. Frodeno's raced with him on the Olympic circuit. A lot of the other pros, ITU guys have.
Yeah.
And what I liked was Brownlee at the start of the week, there's a swim race on the course.
Yeah.
And I think he won it or came second, 47 minutes. So it was like, shut your face, I can swim.
Yeah.
I'm swimming with the best of them, so I'm here.
And then that's a nice point because his qualifying race, the swim was cancelled, but he comes second out of the water and he does it twice in 1 week. So it's not a mistake, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And everyone's sort of saying, it's great for him to be here. Let's see what he can do.
Right.
You never have a good first race on the island, or you don't seem to on the pro side of things.
Yeah.
So, and I listened to a bit of Frodeno after the race, and what he said was Brownlee punctured, and this isn't like Tour de France. You're not waiting.
Yeah.
You puncture.
Yeah.
We're cracking on. Brownlee punctured, and then got back on a few minutes.
So
afterwards.
He's fixed his bike.
Fixed his bike and rode back on,
which is huge.
Tim O'Donnell and Frodeno, and he's rode up alongside Frodeno and said, "Yeah, thanks for fucking waiting."
Far out. And I mean, but fair enough, right? I mean, fair enough that Frodeno doesn't wait, and fair enough that he turns around and says, "Hey, mate, what's going on?"
Yeah, exactly. So now I think that adds a nice little twist to the race because he's showing he's there to compete.
And they're just over halfway through the bike course with a run left, and Brownlee can run.
Yeah. So Brownlee's then taken them back through in towards the 90-mile mark.
Right.
Which is where you're back on the Queen K and you've got basically 22 miles left of the bike course.
Right.
And so he's got back on, and Frodeno must be saying, awesome, because you've just burnt matches to get here.
Yeah.
And no one knows the end of this bike route like Frodeno does. He's raced there that many times.
Yeah.
And he's just absolutely gassed them. 90 miles to go. He's like, I'm not going into T2 with you guys. And he just heads off.
Really?
And goes unanswered. They can't stick with him.
Wow.
So he's coming back in to the crowd first, which I can't imagine the lift that must
huge, right?
Give you. And he's a fan favourite. So everyone loves it.
Yeah.
Then Brownlee's coming in, then Tim O'Donnell, and then the Uber bikers, so the rest of the pack are all coming in. So they're coming in and they'll be seeing who's running out first.
Right.
And then again, you get the sort of third part of the race is now starting because all the runners are saying, here we go. Now I'm onto my territory.
And this is what's really incredible about this race. You said the third part of the race has just started. Bearing in mind these guys have swum just under 50 minutes. They've biked just over 4 hours.
Yeah.
And the only thing that separates them from the end of the race is 26 miles, 42.2 kilometers, which for any normal average, whatever you want to call it, human being is like, oh my God, I'm going to do one of those marathons in my life and I'm going to be busted for a few weeks afterwards. But these guys, this is really when the race is starting and this is when it's getting exciting. As you said, they're coming out of T2, the crowd are going wild because the crowd, spectating on an Ironman is actually incredibly boring, right?
So
because
boring.
it's like literally, okay, we've seen the swim, and they set up quite well in Hawaii on Kona, and you see the transition, but then these guys are gone for 4 hours, and you're literally race radio, something on your phone, maybe watching it, but these guys are now on it, and the race is on, right? Because these guys, all the leaders have come in together.
Pretty much, yeah. A big pack came in together. I think there was, the top three of them were certainly together, and then behind them, I think was around 6 minutes down. So, which it sounds 6 minutes sounds quite a lot, but for the good runners, that's not. They'll be happy with that.
Yeah,
they'll be very happy there. So essentially, at this point, Frodeno is in the lead, and he never loses it. He just off he goes, and he's wearing this new shoe, A6 prototype, called the 4.5%, which I love.
What does that stand for?
Well, the Nike's 4%. And they've gone, we've got a 4.5%.
No way.
So no one knows anything about this shoe apart from it's similar to the Nike.
Right.
And they've given it to Frodeno as a prototype and said, like,
was he an ASIC sponsored athlete before, right?
All his career has been with
ASICs. Okay.
So off he goes, and then basically Brownlee is there.
Yeah.
And says he ran, I think, the first sort of 40 to an hour, and then just said he felt himself go pop.
Yeah.
So he's obviously paying for that effort from the
to
puncture.
Get back on.
And the heat, everyone says, everyone was doubting if he could race in the heat or not.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think they all can, but
I think it's tough though, mate. Like we were saying there, he's had a puncture and he's raced to get back on with those guys, even if it's taken him 3 minutes to fix his puncture.
Yeah.
Which, unless he's absolute Formula One style, it's going to take at least that.
Yeah.
And he's had to gun it, and at that time, these guys, I'm pretty sure that when they saw Brownlee puncture, they're not slowing down at all. Like you said, they're pretty much, they probably upped the pace a little bit as well.
I think so, probably a little dig in,
Yeah, a little dig. So Frodeno's at the front from start to finish of the marathon.
Yeah.
And no one bothers him.
No one bothers him. The fourth place Ben Hoffman, who won Ironman South Africa this year, which I was at and saw him there, and he was running in insane form.
Yeah.
He ran the second fastest marathon of the day.
Yeah.
Frodeno ran 2:42.43.
Which, for those of you that are wondering how fast that is, just to give you a little bit of an insight, he's running sub 4 minute Ks for 42.2 Ks.
Yep.
After he's just ridden for just over 4 hours, swum for just under 50 minutes, he's just got out there and bashed out. It's basically 350 a K for the marathon. So he's absolute. That's not a course record though, is it? I don't think it is.
I think.
Is it?
Patrick Lang set it last year. The run.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but so that's another part to this race. Was Patrick Langer, the defending champion?
Yeah.
Has dropped out an hour into the bike.
Why?
With the flu. Apparently
he got that on the bike.
He said he had it in the days before and it was just too bad, but what was interesting was he came out with the lead pack of swimmers, and he's not a swimmer,
right? So
they reckon he just cooked himself in the swim and then picked up the flu. But I actually have an interesting thought on that as well. We'll bring it up later, but essentially the next fastest guy to Frodeno on the marathon was Ben Hoffman, who ran 2:43.08. So
he's just 20 seconds there faster.
So that shows you how fast Frodeno is running here. And
phenomenal as well, mate. I mean, you look at it, and he's won to second place. He's over 8 minutes, 26 over Tim O'Donnell, which is, I mean, this is a top end, and I know it's a long day and a lot of miles, but an 8 minute gap is super comfortable. When you're running, that's 2 Ks. When you're running 350 a K, he's beaten the field by 2 Ks. Yeah. It's incredible.
And he just went off on the front, and you're sort of wondering then what's motivating him to push so hard.
Yeah, and that's where I wanted to come to. What is motivating him to push so hard?
Well, that's interesting, because I think, Patrick Langer putting out the race obviously takes that I'm going to beat you out of it, because he's gone. Yeah. He's seen, because there's a turnaround on the run at the start, he must have seen the other guys, how they're looking, or if, Brownlee at least, and gone, probably not looking great.
Not looking great.
He's getting his splits coming in saying, you're 8 minutes ahead.
Yeah.
An ex-winner of the championship, who's also German, I think, from the late 90s, stood on the side of the road. And I think he says to him at around 16K, you've got to run a 2:40 4, maybe. You've got to run a 2:44 for the course record.
Right.
And apparently Frodeno was just like, why have you told me this?
Yeah.
But there's your motivation. So he just continues off on the
16k in, so he's just over a third of the way into this race, and someone's gone. But he did it, mate, and he finished up there with 7:51.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah, 7:51.13, a minute and change off last year's record. And they reckon the conditions weren't faster this year.
Yeah,
wind.
Yeah, very interesting that obviously, the wind, the heat as well, that we often see a massive role in Kona, not only coming off those lava fields, but the actual heat in the sky as well. It plays a massive role.
Yeah.
And Jan Frodeno's gone and just destroyed it and doesn't care about the weather in the slightest.
Nailed it. The race is completely unfolding behind him.
Yeah.
Everyone's sort of getting their spaces and learning where they're going to come in a World Championship race. And there's a few guys who just got spat right out the back. If we're looking at sort of the favourites going in, Alistair Brownlee came in 21st in the end.
Yeah.
Lionel Sanders was 22nd behind him. David McNachme, I always pronounce that hard to say.
Congratulations.
He's Scottish.
Nice in the rugby, Japan. Carry on.
He, I think, is DNF'd, so he's gone out. Patrick Lang is gone.
Wow.
The guy who came third last year, Bart Ehrnutz, who is an uber runner.
Yeah.
Not had a great swim, 57 minutes. He is now working his way up and trying to hit into the top 10.
Yeah.
But then basically you've got Keenlay, O'Donnell, they're sort of set second and third. Hoffman is running hard down on Keenlay but doesn't quite catch him. An ex-pro cyclist, an Olympic rower, Cameron Worth, who's super gobby. You'd like him, mate. He's Aussie. He's on Instagram. He's commenting on everything. He's shown that he's not just a biker and has run himself to 5th. And then a massive shout out to this guy who's Joe Skipper from the UK. And got huge respect for him. Ironman Wales 3 weeks ago. I always have to bring up Wales on this show, obviously, as you know.
Not even interesting.
Got disqualified for a littering penalty. Which
filthy animal.
Yeah, is what it is. But he continued.
Yeah.
And continued to race, finish the bike, and then ran the marathon and just said, this I'm not going to disrespect the course and stop.
Yeah.
I wanted to run a marathon, so he did it. I actually think he ran the fastest marathon on the day as well.
Yeah.
Finished. Obviously was disqualified.
Yeah.
And then has come out to Kona. Last year he was 7th. I think the year before that he didn't have a great year, but this year he's managed to get 6th, which he's top Brit. And put in a massive effort there. Really respect to him for that. And then we've got a Kiwi in 7th. And then the guys behind are sort of, I don't know a lot about them, but they're all racing. Don't get me wrong, they are racing their hearts out for just even a top 20, top 30 place.
Well, that's it, mate. They all are, aren't they? And that's what World Championships and that's what Kona brings out in these people. As always, mate, we speak a lot about the men and we should focus a little bit on the women.
Yeah.
Sadly, the way it goes, guys, it's not our fault that the men just seem to get a lot more coverage. We're seeing a big change in ultra running, and we obviously gave a lot of respect there for the women at the start of the show for that marathon effort. However, mate, we saw, which is of interest to us, British lady Lucy Charles-Barclay up on the podium again. She was in 2nd, but give us a round out and a bit of a summary of what happened in the women's race.
Yeah, the women's is interesting. They get paid the same prize money.
Right.
Yeah, it's
which
one of
is
the
cool.
only World Championships in the world where they do that. I think tennis does it as well now. They pay the same prize money, but there's as much investment from these guys as the men's. It's just a little bit more of a given. You can kind of predict the women's podium, or so you think you can. So Daniela Ryf is 4-time world champion. She's never lost a world championship race.
Right.
People were asking me before, who's going to win? I was like, well, why are you asking me that?
It's
really obvious who's going to win. She didn't. She
finished up
13th, mate.
Wow.
Yeah, so she's had a really, really bad day, and nothing really has come out yet about that.
Right.
She's tough. She last year got stung by a jellyfish.
Yeah.
And continued to come through the field on her bike. They call her the Angry Bird, because Angry Birds, when she gets going, she's just taking everyone out.
Right.
And then ran herself back into 1st place and won it last year. So something must have been off this year for her.
Yeah.
But actually the winner in the end was Annie Haug, who is
Surprise,
also German. Not if you've seen her run before.
Yeah.
She's an absolute weapon on the run.
Just
Same
the casual
coach-
251.
Exactly, mate. Same coach as
Unbelievable.
Jan Frodeno. So, their coach is full happy.
I mean, that's phenomenal, isn't it? She's come in 9 minutes slower than him on the run,
Yeah.
which is the gap is closer than the male fastest marathon. Even if we take Kipchoge's sub 2, if we take his 2:01 to what the world record for women is, that gap is actually bigger. Whereas Dan is closer to Frodeno.
Mad.
It's mental.
And she also came in 8 minutes down on Lucy Charles on the bike.
Really?
So she had a real target to go after. Lucy Charles led the swim, which everyone knows she would.
Yeah.
But then, more importantly, she led the bike the whole way.
Right.
And biked a 4:47, which is, it's quick for a Kona in the ladies' field.
Very much so.
And then she's run a 3:05:59. So,
wow.
But what she did do is she lost second place. She went into third for a bit.
Right.
Sarah Crowley, who was third, actually pushed up into second.
Yeah.
And somehow, I mean, these guys are amazing, but she retook someone who overtook her. Which you never see.
You just don't see it, right? Yeah.
So she's gone past
bit
her.
of fight in the dog, yeah.
Yeah, and just shown her, no, hang on a minute. And that's actually
amazing.
her third year in a row being runner-up.
Incredible.
Yeah, mad.
Mate, what a race, what an event. I mean, we spent a lot of time talking about it and all of those things that the guys had to go through, the girls had to go through as well. But in the end, mate, I guess little couple of surprises there in the ladies, but still true top athletes taking the podium. Nothing massively surprising. And in the men, were you happy to see Frodeno back on top?
Very happy, yeah.
That was your
my
pick,
shout.
was he?
He was my shout.
Didn't want to back Brownlee on his debut?
Nah, I said, my heart's with Brownlee being British, but I just love seeing Frodeno. I think he went into this race in an unreal shape. He just looked, he looked unbelievable, like 0% body fat basically. Looked like. And I wonder how much that played into the other competitors. Because two of them got the flu, and you wonder, when you're that level of fitness, and you think, oh my God, look at that guy. How is he there? He's actually, I think he's become a vegetarian, or he's been vegetarian for a while.
Jesus.
Anyway, so I'm wondering, is that mind games? Has he got into that sort of shape?
Yeah.
And he's not raced the 70.3 Worlds. He said basically everything is all in for this Kona.
Yeah.
And I just love his mindset. I love his intent.
Yeah.
And he's gone out and got after it and done exactly what he said he was going to do.
Very cool. Mate, before we wrap up, I want to ask you personally, seeing this, your goal is to get to Kona as an age group athlete, maybe even to take Frodeno down next year. Let's see if you can get in some decent shape for that.
Kick him hard.
Must be a massive amount of motivation, inspiration. Tell us a little bit about the impact that weekend and even talking about it. You talk about it with a lot of energy. What's the impact it's had on you?
For me, I don't need much more inspiration to be going there.
Yeah.
It has been a goal of mine. I mean, I was so confident that I was going to go this year.
Yeah.
If you look at the conditions, it might have been a lucky factor that I didn't, because it was one of the hardest swims, and not being a great swimmer.
Yeah.
So maybe look at it like that. But I mean, this time last year, I was watching the same race and thinking I'm going to be there next year.
Yeah.
Like I said, I thought I would be from racing South Africa.
Yeah.
I've never been so confident that I could do it. I've never lost motivation on it, but just seeing it all, the feeds of from the YouTube, and just knowing and what it helps me with is visualization.
Yeah.
So I'm a really big fan of visualizing where you are and where you want to be.
Yeah.
And so the more time I can get exposed to what Kona looks like, how it is to be there, listening to what people have experienced there, the more I feel like I know it, and I will, when I do go there, I'll just be more settled in at home.
Amazing. There we have it, folks. That is Kona Special, a great race. I get excited about it. This guy's even more excited about it. He obviously knows a lot more than I do, but it really is. I love to see the World Championships. I'm sure you guys agree as well. And as we said at the start, don't miss out on these guys' show, the new Run Strong podcast, which is airing on a Sunday, replacing our Sunday show for the next few weeks. I will get back to my normal chit-chat when they give me the mic back, but that's something that we really think that people want. We get so many running questions. We get so much people asking different things about running, and running is obviously kicking off, and I think it's going to change what Kipchoge did at the weekend, and then in the women's marathon as well, a new world record from my dear Paula Radcliffe, who has sent me personal messages in the past. I'm very upset that she's lost it, but she's been very gracious in defeat, and it's been a 16-year record. So please do check those guys out. They're doing the Sunday show for the next few weeks. We'll be back same time next week. I think we've got listener Q&A next week, so it should be quite a lot of fun. If you've got questions, flick them over. But for now, thanks a lot for tuning in, and thanks a lot for all of the support for the podcast.